Winston Churchill, a name that echoes through the halls of history, a figure of indomitable courage, razor-sharp wit, and unshakable determination. To understand the man who led Britain through its darkest hour, we must journey through his extraordinary life, an odyssey of privilege, war, political exile, and ultimately, redemption. It all began on November 30th, 1874, in the grand halls of Blenheim Palace. Born into the aristocratic Spencer Churchill family, Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill was destined for greatness. His father, Lord Randolph Churchill, was a fiery conservative politician. His mother, Jenny Jerome, a strikingly beautiful American socialite. Yet, despite his noble lineage, Churchill's childhood was anything but affectionate. His parents were distant, their ambitions focused elsewhere, leaving him in the care of his beloved nanny, Elizabeth Everest. It was she who nurtured young Winston, providing the warmth and care that he would later recall with great fondness. At Harrow, Churchill was not an exceptional student. He struggled with Latin and mathematics, but his love for history and literature blossomed. He found solace in the pages of books, captivated by tales of war and adventure. His path was set, not in academia, but in action. Upon attending the Royal Military College at Sandhurst, Churchill excelled in military training, foreshadowing his future role as a soldier and leader. Commissioned into the British Army in 1895, Churchill sought adventure in the farthest reaches of the empire. He saw action in India and the Sudan, where he participated in the famous Battle of Omdurman. But it was in South Africa during the Second Boer War that his legend was truly forged. Captured as a war correspondent, he staged a daring escape, evading enemy patrols, crossing miles of hostile territory, and ultimately reaching safety. His exploits made headlines back home, catapulting him into the public eye. He had tasted both war and fame, and he was eager for more. Winston Churchill's marriage to Clementine Hosier, on the 12th of September 1908, in St. Margaret's, Westminster, was a partnership built on love, resilience, and unwavering support. They honeymooned in Baveno, Venice, and Veveri Castle in Moravia, before settling into a London home at 33 Eccleston Square. They had 5 children: Diana, Randolph, Sarah, Marigold, and Mary. Their relationship endured the pressures of war, politics, and personal struggles. Clementine was not just his wife, but his most trusted advisor, offering wisdom and stability during his most turbulent moments. Through financial troubles and Winston's bouts of depression, his black dog, Clementine remained his anchor. Her influence shaped his leadership, especially during World War II, when she stood by him as both critic and confidant. Their love, tested but unbreakable, lasted over 56 years, proving that behind one of history's greatest leaders was a woman of extraordinary strength. Elected as a Conservative MP in 1900s, Churchill was never one to conform. His radical views on social reform led him to cross the aisle in 1904, joining the Liberal Party. As president of the Board of Trade and later Home Secretary, he championed workers' rights and prison reforms, but it was in the First World War that he would face his first great test and failure. As First Lord of the Admiralty, Churchill pushed for the ambitious Gallipoli campaign, a bold strategy to open a new front against the Ottoman Empire. The operation ended in disaster, with massive losses. Forced to resign, Churchill took an unorthodox step. He returned to the battlefield, serving on the Western Front. Amid the mud and blood of the trenches, he rebuilt his spirit. He would not be defeated. Rejoining the Conservative Party in the 1920s, Churchill served as Chancellor of the Exchequer, controversially bringing Britain back onto the gold standard. Churchill's stance on colonial rule also sparked criticism. He opposed Indian independence and viewed the British Empire as a force for good, a perspective increasingly out of step with global movements towards self-governance. His resistance to decolonization fueled tensions, particularly with Indian leaders like Mahatma Gandhi. The 1930s were a turbulent decade for Winston Churchill, marked by political isolation and warnings that went largely unheeded. After serving in key government positions earlier in his career, Churchill found himself out of power for much of the decade. His opposition to Indian self-rule, controversial views on empire, and criticism of his own party led to his exclusion from mainstream politics. However, Churchill's most significant role in the 1930s was as an outspoken critic of Nazi Germany. While many British leaders favored appeasement, Churchill repeatedly warned about Hitler's growing military strength and the dangers of inaction. His calls for rearmament and stronger resistance to German aggression were dismissed at the time, but history later vindicated him. He saw Hitler's rise for what it truly was, a prelude to catastrophe. Ignored, mocked, and politically sidelined, Churchill never wavered. An appeaser, he famously remarked, is one who feeds the crocodile, hoping it will eat him last. When Germany invaded Poland in 1939, the world finally realized Churchill had been right all along. On September 3, 1939, the day Britain declared war on Germany, Winston Churchill was recalled to government as First Lord of the Admiralty, the same position he had held during World War I. His return marked a crucial moment in Britain's war effort, as he immediately set to work strengthening the Royal Navy and preparing the nation for the battles ahead. However, his day of destiny was yet to come. In Britain's darkest hour, it was to Churchill that the nation turned. On May 10, 1940, he became Prime Minister. The war was all but lost, France was falling, and Hitler's armies seemed unstoppable, yet Churchill refused to surrender. "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears and sweat," he declared. His speeches became the lifeblood of British resistance. A master of words, a giant of history, Churchill's influence extended far beyond politics. His writings, including the Second World War and a history of the English-speaking peoples, ensured his place not just as a statesman, but as one of the greatest chroniclers of his time. Churchill once said, "Success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue that counts." And in that courage, Winston Churchill became immortal.